Good afternoon. We are back in full effect. No, but welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me. I definitely appreciate the love and support. Um, for those who don't know, if this is your first time tuning in, my name is Ms. Hampton, and I am your favorite nerdy educator, the hardest working nerdiest educator you ever met in your life. And I'm coming at you today with a part two video talking about two-step equations. Okay. So my last video, I discussed how you would solve one-step equations. Well, this video, I am going to be discussing two-step equations and how you would solve them. Okay, so please, if you missed the video about the one-step equations, check it out. It's back there. All right, it's in the Freebie Friday playlist. So make sure that you check those out. Okay. So we're gonna go ahead and get started. Hopefully this video won't be as long as the first video. I try to minimize it no more than 30 minutes. Sometimes I go a little over, but I'm working on it, okay? So we're gonna go ahead and get started. When you are solving two-step equations, you must make sure that you are strong and confident with your integers. Remember, integers are only positive and negative numbers. So if you are not confident with adding, subtracting, multiplying, and or dividing integers, you may want to pump your brakes and drop down in the comments section to say, Ms. Hampton, aka my favorite nerdy educator, can you please do a video about integers? Or who knows, I may surprise you and just do a video about integers. But either way, just make sure that you are strong and confident in your integers, because integers are definitely going to be a key factor in two-step equations. Okay? And this is actually going to be a game changer. Well, technically not, because two-step equations are a foundation of one-step equations. So remember, we're building upon a foundation. If you are confident with one-step equations, two-step equations are not going to be as bad. All right. So I picked out a couple of I can't talk. I picked out a couple of two-step equations that I want to go over, making sure that you recognize what they are and how to solve them. All right. And again, if you have any questions during any time of the duration of this video and any others that I've posted, please make sure you drop them down in the comment section, and I will be sure to answer them. Okay, because that's very important. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And as always, I am going to pull up my floating toolbar. Hey, toolbar, thank you for joining me. All right, and I'm going to put it back onto my favorite color, which is blue. Shout out to blue. All right, so remember, with one-step equations, we are only dealt with, and I'm just marking this out here, okay? Simply because with a one-step equation, we only had a variable plus or minus multiplied or divided by another number with an equal sign and the answer, okay? But now, because we have a coefficient or a number that is in front of the variable, that means we're going to have to do two steps, okay? So the very first step that we are going to do in number 3, we have to recognize and identify what kind of problem that we're working with. So for number 3, we are working with an subtraction problem. Why? Because we have a subtraction sign in the middle. So because we are working with a subtraction problem, we are going to follow the very first step, which is do the opposite of what the problem says. So we're going to add 7 to both sides. So I want you to see how I'm adding 7 to both sides, okay? Now, I am simply going to say -7 plus 7, that cancels out. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down my 9x. Okay, so I'm going to bring down my 9x, and that is going to be equal to -7 plus 7 is 0. Now, I am not finished with my problem simply because I still need to have the variable equaling a numeric value. And I can't do that simply because now I have gone from a subtraction problem to a multiplication problem. So I'm going to just write up here, start it off with a subtraction problem. Okay, so this was a subtraction problem. I'm just going to write. That was a subtraction problem. And now we've gone from subtraction to multiplication. Okay. So now this is a multiplication problem. Why is it a multiplication problem? Remember, when you have a coefficient or a number and a variable put together and it's equaling another number, that is automatic multiplication in algebra. Okay. Remember, the x sign, the multiplication sign goes away. Okay. So because now I have a multiplication problem, I now have to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. So now I am going to divide both sides by 9. Okay. And when I do this, my answer is going to be x is equal to 0. Okay. So that is going to be my answer. Now, remember, as I stated in the last video, you want to make sure that in fact 0 is your answer. So when it comes to two-step equations, you want to check your answers. Matter of fact, you want to check your answers on all math concepts, really, just to make sure that you are understanding the concept and how you derived at your answer. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I am simply just going to check my answer, and I do that by substituting 0 in place of x in the original equation. Okay, so over here, I am simply going to write 9, and remember, x is equal to 0. So I substituted my 0 in for x because x and 0 are equal. And that's going to be minus 7. And my answer should come out to be negative 7. Okay. So I'm just going to solve. Okay. And I say 9 times 0 is 0. Minus 7, negative 7. And when I finish this problem, negative 7 does check out. So because negative 7 equals negative 7, that means this is my answer. Okay. So just a quick recap. We dealt with two operations in this particular problem. We had a subtraction problem first. And what we had to do the opposite, which was add. So I added 7 to both sides. And then I crossed that out. And I brought my 9x down. And I was left with 9x is equal to 0. Because negative 7 plus 7 gives me a 0. Okay. And then my subtraction problem turned into a multiplication problem. So now I had to do the opposite of multiplication, which is division. And I divided both sides by 9, and it gave the answer of x is equal to 0. Okay, so what I did to check my answer to make sure that it was emphatically correct, I substituted x back into the original equation. I substituted 0 in back into the original equation for x. So now I have 9 times 0 minus 7 equals negative 7. 9 times 0 is 0. Minus 7 equals negative 7. 0 minus negative 7 gives me a negative 7. Negative 7 equals negative 7. So because it checks out, that means 0 is in fact my answer. Now, remember, it's very important that you know the basic arithmetic of it all, okay? Which goes back to integers as well. So I cannot stress enough. And you see that we're dealing with negative numbers and positive numbers, okay? So again, it's very important that you make sure that you have a strong foundation on how you add, subtract, multiply, and divide integers, because if not, this may be a little difficult for you. Okay. Now, okay, find my cursor. Okay. So now I'm going to just jump to number 9. Okay. And on number 9, I have negative 9x. So this is, so pay attention. Negative 9x plus 1 is equal to negative 80. Okay. So the first thing I have to do is I have to recognize what kind of problem do I have here. Okay. So I don't have enough room here, but this is an addition problem because we have a plus sign right there. Okay. So I'm just going to put over here, this is an addition problem. Okay. So because it's an addition problem, that means I have to do the opposite, which is subtract. Okay. So now I'm going to subtract my negative 1. I'm sorry, not subtract negative 1. I'm going to subtract 1, excuse me. Okay. So when I do that, I know that 1 minus 1, that gives me 0. So I'm going to cancel that out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring down my negative 9x. And that is going to equal negative 81. Now, I know some of you all might be thinking, Ms. Hampton, how did you get negative 81? Okay. Well, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to switch colors very quickly, and I am going to go from blue to red. And I'm going to write it down here. So when I write this out, negative 80 minus 1, that means I am subtracting integers. So again, you must make sure that you recognize that this is the concept that you're reinforcing, which is subtracting integers. So of course, I'm going to go to my keep, change, or keep, change, opposite rule. Either one is okay. So I'm going to keep negative 80 the same. I am going to change my subtraction sign to addition because, again, they are inverse operations. And I'm going to change my positive 1 to a negative 1 because the opposite of positive 1 is negative 1. Okay. So when I add two negatives together, it gives me a negative answer. Okay. So I will just leave that up here so that way you can see where exactly I came up with the negative 81. All right. So now I have gone from an addition problem to now, again, a multiplication problem. So I'm going to write over here so that way you can recognize what multiplication problems in algebra looks like. And I don't have enough room, so I'm just going to put multi to let you know that that's a multiplication problem. Okay. Now, I am dealing with the multiplication problem. So that means I have to now use the opposite operation, which is division. Okay. So when I divide, I'm dividing by negative 9. Remember, the number takes the sign. So whatever sign is in front of that number is going to determine whether or not it's positive or negative. If there is a minus sign in front of the number, we know that it's a negative number. If there is not a sign in front of the number, then we automatically know that it's positive. Okay. So now, again, reinforcing the rules of integers as it relates to division. A negative divided by a negative gives me a positive. So my answer would be 9. Okay. So that's my answer because I have a negative 81 divided by a negative 9 and it gives me a positive 9. Now I am going to write this. I'm going to check my work over here, making sure that my answer is indeed 9. Okay. So So hopefully I have enough room because sometimes I write big. So I have -9, and that's going to be multiplied by a +9 because x is equal to 9. So I can easily substitute this number back in place of x for the original equation. And I am going to add 1. And that should give me -80. It should, but we're going to find out. Okay. Now, negative times a positive gives me a negative. Okay, so you remember these rules of integers, adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing, very important. You need a refresher, can't stress it enough, leave it in the comment section. All right, and I'm going to add a +1 to that. Okay. Now, -81 plus 1. So again, I'm going to use the example of money. If I was -$81 in my account, Lord, I pray that that's none of us. But if I was -$81 in my account and I was just blessed to put $1 back into my account, that means I still, let me put my negative right there. I still would be -$80, which means I have a long way to go. But in essence, because -80 is equal to -80, this lets me know that my answer of +9 was correct. Okay? So again, making sure that you know how these integers work, because with the two-step equations, integers play a big part. They really, really do. All right. Now, these next two problems I really want to focus on because a lot of people get these problems, these types of problems confused. And I want to debunk and clarify all of these things so that way you'll have a better understanding. Now, I want to start with number 5 because once number 5, I get through with number 5, then number 6 will make a lot of sense. Okay. So with number 5, it says -4 is equal to r over 20 minus 5. Okay. Now, I want you to pay special attention to this. Okay. That is a fraction, correct? You should nod your head. Yes, that's a fraction. Okay. Now, this fraction is a part of the equation. Okay. So I'm going to put over here part of the equation. Okay. So because this fraction is a part of the equation, okay, we can simply ask ourselves, what kind of problem is this? So looking at the sign here, we have a subtraction problem. So I'm going to put on the side over here subtraction again. Okay. So this is a subtraction problem. So because it's a subtraction problem, that means I need to do the opposite, which is add. So now I'm going to add a +5 to both sides. Okay. Now, when I do that, my -5 and my +5 cancels out, and I am left with this. So make sure you pay attention, because if you blink, you may miss it. Okay. So 5 minus 4, that leaves me with 1. Okay. And that's going to be equal to r over 20. Okay. Now remember, this fraction was a part of the equation. Okay. So that fraction was a part of the equation. So remember that, because when we get to number 6, I want you to see the difference. You may actually see the difference already, but if you do, kudos to you. But if not, keep watching. Now, I now have gone from a subtraction problem to now a division problem. Why? Because remember, fractions are nothing more than division problems. So this is a division problem. So because it's a division problem, that means I need to do the opposite. Let me just put div. I don't even want to write it all out. All right. Don't have enough room. All right. So because this is a division problem, that means I'm going to do the opposite, which is multiply. So now I can only multiply numbers together. So 1 times 20 gives me R is equal to 20. Okay. That's my answer. But I need to check my answer to be sure that emphatically R is equal to 20. So now I'm just going to substitute 20 in for wherever I see an R. So when I do that, I'm going to have the following. I'm going to have -4 is equal to 20 over 20. Because remember, R is equal to 20. That means I can substitute my 20 back in to the original equation for R. It can replace it. Okay. And that is -5. Now, we know that anytime you have a number over itself, that equals 1. So I'm just going to rewrite this whole entire thing. So I have -4 equals 1 minus 5. Okay. Now, here is where we have our subtracting integers again, because I am subtracting a positive number from another positive number, but this time 1 is bigger than 5, so I'm saying 1 minus 5. So I am going to show you again by using the keep change rule how this answer will be correct. I'm going to say 1 plus -5. Okay. Because remember, I kept my first number the same. I changed my subtraction sign to addition. Again, they are inverse operations. And I changed my second number to the opposite. The opposite of 5 is -5. So when I do this, if I had $1 in my account, but I spent $5, that means I am negative. Hope y'all can see that. -$4 in the hole, which is bad. So because -4 equals -4, this lets me know that my answer of R equals 20 is correct. Okay. Okay, so hopefully you all are catching the connections and how you can recognize the problem that you start off with to then the next type of problem that you have. Okay. Now, I love number 6. Number 6 is awesome. Going back to number 5, I can never find my cursor, y'all. Going back to number 5, I had a fraction that was a part of the equation. For number 6, my fraction is the equation. So I want you again to see the difference. This is a whole fraction, okay? And it is a whole fraction. So this is the entire equation because it's equal to one thing. Whereas number 5 had a fraction, okay? Number 5 had a fraction, but it was minus another number. So remember, catch the difference because you wouldn't solve number 5 and number 6 in the same manner, okay? So because this is a division problem, this is a whole division problem, okay? Because it's a whole division problem, I am going to do the opposite of division, which is multiplication, right? So that means I'm going to cross multiply these two numbers together. So -1 times a +6 gives me a -6. I'm going to try to write it over here so that way I can have room to check my answer. So I have -6 is equal to 5 plus x. Okay. So now I have gone from a division problem to an addition problem because I have my addition sign right there, okay? So that is now an addition problem. So because I have an addition problem, that means I am now going to subtract because that's the opposite of addition. So I am going to subtract 5 from both sides. That cancels out. And so again, I have -6 minus 5. That is going to give me a -11. And that is going to be equal to x. Okay. So again, if you want to see how I did that, I simply just used the keep, change rule. Unfortunately, I do not have enough space to write this problem out, but I kept this first number the same. I changed this to addition, and I made my second number a negative. Okay, so that's how I did it. So now to check my work, I am going to substitute my -11 back into the original equation for x. So this is what I have. I have -1 is equal to 5 plus, and I'm going to put -11 in parentheses, okay? And that is going to be over 6. I have -1 that is equal to 5 plus -11. That gives me -6 over 6. A negative divided by a positive gives me a negative. So therefore, -1 is equal to -1. Hopefully you all can see that. If not, my apologies. Okay? I write very big. I can't help it. Okay? So because -1 is equal to -1, this lets me know that this answer is in fact correct. Okay? So I'm going to give you all maybe a moment. So if you want to pause this video right now, you're more than welcome to, just to bring it all in, let it sink in, let it marinate, because I can understand that this is a lot to absorb. I totally get it. But as you can see, I just simply took what I've learned from the one-step equations and I'm simply applying it to the two-step equations. I'm recognizing what equations I'm working with and I'm doing the opposite. The only thing with two-step is I'm doing it twice. That's it. So we've gone from multiplication. Where is my cursor? We've gone from subtraction to multiplication for number 3. For number 9, we went from addition to multiplication because we had to subtract and then we divided. For number 5, it was a subtraction problem. So that means we added, and then it turned into a division problem where we ended up having to multiply. Okay. And then for this last one that we just did, it started off as a division problem. And because it was a division problem, we had to multiply our two numbers here. And then I had an addition problem, and I had to do the opposite, which was subtraction. Okay. It's all about recognizing the operations and doing the opposite operation. That's really what it boils down to. Okay. Now, I have one more. Slide I want to show you, and then this will be the end of part 2 of our Freebie Friday video. Multi-step equations. You do not know how many times I get, Ms. Hampton, I don't know how to do multi-step equations. So my question to my students would be, well, do you know how to do one-step equations? Yes. Do you know how to do two-step equations? Yes. Well, if you answer yes to both of those questions, then you too, Smitty Smith, can do a multi-step equation. think what frightens my students sometimes, depending on who they are, they see the word, where is my cursor, Lord? I can't. Okay. They see the word multi and they just go nuts. Okay. Now, multi-step, of course, means multiple steps. I would say more than 3. It's definitely more than 2. Okay. Well, no more than maybe 3 steps, just depending on how long the problem is and what all you would have to do. So I picked out 2 special problems, and I'm going to go over multi-step equations with you all very quickly. Now, there is this thing, and I think I did a video on it in my regular math class for the playback. So please feel free to watch all of my math videos. They are in my playback playlist. So please feel free to watch all of them, because again, math is a concept where it's repetitive and you will see certain things, but it'll be presented in a different way. And you have to make sure that you recognize what's what. Okay. Now, I say that to say there is this thing called distributive property. The word distribute means to give. Okay. So we are dealing with distributive property in numbers 8 and numbers 24 because we have parentheses and we have a number outside of the parentheses. Okay. So the word distribute means to give. Okay. So what we're going to do, we are going to give the outside number to whatever is on the inside via multiplication. So I'm going to multiply this 2 times n, and then I'm going to multiply this 2 times 5. Okay, so that's my first step. I have to get rid of my parentheses. Now, when I do that, this is my answer. 2n plus 10 is equal to -2. Now, again, I have a video that discusses distributive property. It is in my playback playlist, so please make sure you watch that for a quick refresher. Okay. Now I have a regular schmegular problem. What kind of problem am I working with? I have an addition problem because that is an addition sign. So that means I have to do the opposite. So here I'm going to write this is an addition problem. Okay. So before I get further, I'm going to write this deals with distributive property. Okay. All right. So that's the, and I don't like how I wrote it, but I'm not going to erase it. Distributive property. Okay. Yeah, I really don't like how I wrote that. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm kind of picky, kind of particular and peculiar when it comes to my writing. All right. Okay. So that's distributive property. Okay. And so now I have an addition problem. And because my problem is an addition problem, I am now going to do the opposite, which is subtract. Now I'm going to subtract 10 from both sides, okay? When I do this, 10 minus 10 gives me 0, so I don't have to write a 0 right there. You can just write a slash or exit out to let you know that that is going to be 0. And I'm going to bring down 2n is equal to -12. Again, this is reinforcing subtracting integers. I keep my -2 the same. Okay, so let me, well, I don't know if I'm going to have enough room. I keep my -2 the same. I change, let me just write it over here. Keep, change, change. Please don't confuse this with keep, change, opposite. That is dividing fractions, okay? Don't confuse the two. One is KCC or KCO, the other is KCF, not KFC, okay? I get it all the time. That's why I'm saying it. All right. So now I have a multiplication problem here because, again, I have a coefficient or number multiplied or put together with a letter and it's equaling an integer. So that is multiplication. Okay. So because that is multiplication, I'm going to do the opposite, which is divide. So I'm going to divide by 2 because remember, I want my letter to be by itself. So I have to divide by the number with the variable. When I do that, that crosses out, and that leaves me with n is equal to -6. Okay. Now, I am going to check my answer to make sure that my answer is in fact -6. So what I'm going to do is this. I'm going to say 2, and that is going to be with -6 in parentheses, because remember, I'm substituting my letter n. I'm substituting my number 6 for the letter n. I always get those, but you know what I'm saying. All right. So I'm going to say +5. And that is equal to -2. There are 1 or 2 ways that you can solve this problem, but because I'm running out of room, I am going to do the easy route, and I am going to work within parentheses first. You can technically do the distributive property, but you could, but because I'm running out of space, I am going to just work what is in here. So -6 plus 5, that gives me a -1. So I say -2 multiplied by -1 does in fact give me a -2. So therefore, -2 is equal to -2 all day, every day. So therefore, and that really looks like the letter B, but it's really a 6, y'all. Okay. So in fact, this is my correct answer. N is equal to -6. Okay. All right. And there's one more that I would like to show you, and then that will be the end of this video for part 2. I want to encourage you all, do not be intimidated by how big the numbers are. Focus on the process. That's very important. Don't be so, oh my God, these numbers are big, I don't know what to do. As long as you know the process and you know the steps on how to solve the problem, the numbers won't matter. Okay, that's very important. Because some people would have looked at this next one and would have been like, nope, I'm picking C and I'm not doing it. Don't take the easy way out. Always work through, channel through, push through. I don't know who that was for, but I hope you received it. All right. So again, I have the distributive property. Okay, so I'm just going to put DP because I'm running out of space. So distributive property is here. And what that means, I'm going to take -9 multiplied by 10 and -9 multiplied by x. So when I do this, I have -243 is equal to -9 times a +10. That gives me a -90. Remember, a negative multiplied by a positive gives you a negative. And I am going to say -9 multiplied by x. That gives me a -9x. Again, a negative times a positive gives you a negative. Okay. Now, this is a subtraction problem. I'm going to put the letter S. It's a subtraction problem because this is the sign that I'm dealing with. Okay. So I am going to do the opposite of subtraction, which is add. So I am going to add 90 both sides. Okay. Now, excuse me, when I do this, that cancels out, right? And I am left with, is that -153? let me pull up my calculator here. And it's okay. If for big numbers like this, if you don't know it off the top of your head, it is all right. Feel free to pull up a calculator, okay? And my calculator is acting funny and don't want to pull up. So I'm just going to work it over here. Or maybe it's pulled up and we just can't see. Okay. So I'm just simply going to say 243. Okay, so I was right. So that's negative 153. Where is my, okay. And that is equal to negative 9x. Okay. Now, I have gone from a subtraction problem. Now I have a multiplication problem. Okay. All right. So remember, I am going to divide by negative 9. Because I want the letter to be by itself. So when I do that, I am left with x is equal to 17. Because remember, a negative divided by a negative gives us a positive number. Now, just to make sure that you know that I'm right, because that's what I do, I'm going to check my work. So I am going to put down here negative 243. Hopefully I have enough room. Is equal to negative 9, and that is multiplied by 10 plus 17. Okay, so I'm going to add what is in parentheses, and I'm going to say 10 plus 17. That gives me 27 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so I'm going to say negative 9 multiplied by 27. Okay, and I have my calculator over here. I don't know if you all can see it, but I got it on my tripod. Okay, I'm just working that. Okay, and I am going to say 27 times 9 just to be sure. Now, a negative times a positive gives me that negative. So my answer, in fact, is negative 243. Okay. Ooh, hopefully y'all can see that. Okay. So because negative 243 is equal to negative 243, my answer is correct that 17 is equal to x. Now, with all of that being said, there is no excuse, okay? You can now do one-step equations, two-step equations, and multi-step equations, okay? So thank you so much for rocking with me today for part deux of of the Freebie Friday video dealing with one-step and two-step equations. Again, I didn't want to, I guess, elongate the video. So that's why I kind of split it up. So that way you can understand one concept, build on it to be stronger in it, and then you can just add on to what you already know. Okay. Again, thank you so much, Toolbar. You've been a great help. I really appreciate you. All right. So again, thank you so much for rocking with your girl. I really do appreciate the love and support. If you have any questions at all as it relates to the one-step videos or the two-step videos, or along with the multi-step equation part that I added in there, please feel free to drop it down in the comment section, and I'll do my best to answer. Also, I am going to attach a worksheet. So with all the videos that I do, I will attach some type of supplemental practice. Okay. It'll be a worksheet. More than likely, it'll be a worksheet So that way you can just download it and work on it at your own pace and your own timing. Remember, nobody is running this race but you. Okay, so just keep that in mind. But again, I love each and every one of you. I pray that you all have a wonderful and blessed weekend. Again, if you have any other suggestions or requests on Freebie Friday videos, please let me know, because that's what I do. I will do it for you. All right, so let me go ahead and sign out. I love you all dearly. There's absolutely nothing you can do about it. And until the next Freebie Friday, I was going to say, sound like I was going to say Freaky Friday, but Freebie Friday video. Bye. Have a blessed and safe weekend. Y'all be safe and be careful.